When you're 10, you can still have a laugh, even when your family's been torn apart. And you can dive like a duck in a pond, even when your house has been burned down and you've walked for 3 weeks to get to a place where there's nothing. They'd love to go home. But home turned into the mouth of a shark, and they had no choice but to run for the border.
The first thing that happens when you walk into one of these camps is that you get mobbed by children. There are so many of them. In fact, there are more than 400,000 children among the recent arrivals alone. Many will have seen things that they will find it impossible to ever forget. Now, there are, of course, agencies working with these children to try to help them reclaim their childhoods, but inevitably, some are forced by circumstance to grow up too fast.
Many hundreds of children are living in households, if you can call these houses at all, headed by their older brothers or sisters. Sometimes it's because mums and dads are dead or have disappeared, or both. Like with these two, Jana Alam, who's 13, and Salma, his sister, who's 11. It's not just Saturday morning chores for them, it's a daily fight for survival. Their 9-year-old brother, Shafiul Alam, helps out too, looking after their grandma and grandpa. She's very sick. He's an emotional, traumatized wreck.
My uncle and my grandma's brother both had their throats slit. When they burned our house, my father was killed. I saw some of my friends murdered. They shot so many people in my village. Most of the kids my age were killed by the military.
Their village was attacked as they prepared for the Eid feast 2 months ago. The survivors ran for the hills. A few days later, they reached Nakondia Beach, across the river from Bangladesh.
Then I got into a boat with my family. There was a woman right behind me, and I thought it was my mum. Then, when we were in the middle of the river, I suddenly realised it wasn't.
It's possible that the children's mother just remains lost among the crush of 600,000 refugees. Jana Alam had no choice but to knuckle down and get on with it.
Your mum would be very proud of you. Can you tell me, was it really hard doing all this?
I'm still a child, but what can I do? I have to take care of my family. I go up into the hills and collect firewood, which I sell in the market. I can barely afford to buy some dried fish and rice out of that money.
The family arrived in this camp 10 days ago, but have yet to receive a token which would enable them to claim food aid. Salma has seamlessly taken over her mother's role. The first thing I do in the morning is brush my teeth, she told me. Then I recite some pages from the Quran. Then I cook breakfast from the family and get on with the chores. The children laid the mud floor of the shack themselves. Their new neighbours helped them put up the walls and the roof. Nine-year-old Shafiul Alam remained very quiet. He said he sometimes helped his brother collect firewood and that he fetched water too. Over the past week, we have filmed countless refugee children carrying heavy loads. We've watched children caring for the elderly and the infirm. Amid organised chaos, biometric registration continues apace. 4-year-old Anwar Hakim, proud of his new ID card which says he's a Myanmar national, something Myanmar disagrees with. Babies are being weighed and screened for acute malnutrition, a process less popular than bath time.
Okay.
The organisation is brutal, under the disciplinarian aegis of the Bangladesh army, seemingly oblivious to what these women and children have been through. This blue police uniform is unfortunately identical to fatigues worn by the 33rd Light Infantry Division of the Myanmar military, allegedly responsible for many atrocities against the Rohingya. There's no allegedly about the atrocity suffered by this girl. Janatara, who's 12, was shot twice in the hip by the military. One bullet went straight through her leg. She's helped around by her adoring 10-year-old sister Anjuman. Janatara has celebrity status among children in Kutupalong.
When I first saw her, she was covered in blood in her uncle's arms. Everybody was asking what had happened to her. Her uncle said she'd been shot. They removed bits of the bullet from her leg, gave her some medicine, and then she came back home to the camp. She's very brave, I think.
The girls live in a mud-floored shack with their uncle, aunt, cousins and their 95-year-old grandmother. Their own mother had died of TB years before. Janatara is in constant pain. She's had medical care, but no other help at all since she arrived here 2 weeks ago.
There was a military camp just next to our village. It was about 4 a.m. when the army started shooting. We somehow waited until it was light. Then we ran towards the next village. We were near a lake when my father was shot in the chest and my elder brother was shot in the head. They were killed on the spot. Then I was shot in the waist. I was bleeding so much. My uncle came to rescue me, then I fainted. I don't remember anything after that.
I don't know how my sister and I survived, Anjuman added. When she was hit, there were bodies lying everywhere, she said. Most of the people we were with were shot dead.
When I took her on my shoulder, I was drenched in her blood. The villages behind me and on my right and on my left were burning. As I walked, I thought my brother is dead, and these are his children. I have to try and save them, even if I'm killed in the process. So I headed to the next village. Then we started walking towards Bangladesh. I had to go through the hills and stay in the forest.
He made a poultice from grass and leaves, bandaged her wound and carried her for 15 days. She had no painkillers. They slept rough and ate almost nothing, squeezing the juice from wild banana trees when they couldn't find water. Janatara's world changed forever.
I used to play a lot back in Burma, but now I don't feel like playing anymore. Our mum died long ago, and our father and elder brother are now dead too. We are orphans. We have no one left. We are so worried.
Anjuman said, "We can't even eat properly, we're so worried." We left Uncle Abdus to carry Janat Ara back to her new home. He had promised Allah, he said, that he'd treat the girls as his own daughters. But even children who've been forced to grow up too fast can become children again, given just half a chance. In one of Kutupalong's new child-friendly spaces, we found Jana Alam hard at work playing Ludo and Salma listening to stories. We knew the introverted young Shafiul Alam was in here too, but we just couldn't see him. Then the identity of the stomping Stegosaurus suddenly dawned on us. Like Superman, Shafi had slipped on his costume and found his secret superpower.